Today's video, we are breaking down and dissecting the pyramid method, and we're doing this for a reason. So this might just look like a spaghetti bowl to you, but I promise you it's not, and we are going to go over this. So if you have collections or foreclosures or student loans or repossessions or tax liens or bankruptcies or late payments, then this is the video that you want to watch, because if you don't understand how to use these things, in what order you should be using them, and examples of using them, then you're not going to be able to understand how to use the tactics that we're going to go over in part 2 of the brand new tactic series. All right. As I mentioned, this might look like a spaghetti bowl. I promise it is not. And let's get right to it. So this is the pyramid method dissection. We have our credit report. And on our credit report, we have all sorts of accounts, right? The only way to remove these permanently, effectively, is to understand what it is that you're looking for to begin with, right? And that's why we have this nice little flow of how to dispute them, because we're not sending out a template that just says this is unverified. We're telling them using the information that they, the creditors, the bureaus, the collectors are giving us, because they're telling us what to use to remove it. Okay, so that is what we are going to do right now. So let's just use a collection, third party, medical, utility, apartment. Most apartments, some of them are debt buyers. So we're going to start with collections. All right. So we have right here, you could see bureau and collector. We have two different ways of disputing this. As you can see, under collector, I only have VOD series. Okay, there's a reason for this. The validation of debt is the only way that I dispute directly with the collector. Okay, so there's no other way that I recommend to dispute directly with the collector. And you're also going to want to check out the statute of limitations and all that kind of stuff. But just to be kind of general about it, I only recommend disputing directly with the collector if you're using validation of debt. So let's jump right over to bureau. Okay, so with the bureaus, I dispute first unknown, then we would go failure to verify, then collector didn't validate, and each of these has their own letter. Okay, and this kind of goes along with the domino effect for disputing video. If you go back through my YouTube videos, all right, collector didn't validate, you don't have any proof, so you need to remove it. And then now it says follow charge off. What that means is, and as you can see, it connects somewhere, right? Follow charge off means if this does not work, going unknown, failure to validate or verify, collected and validate, no proof. Now you can jump down and go to charge off, and you can follow exactly what it says for the bureaus. Okay, now if you take a look, we're just gonna go over this part of the charge off real quick. If you take a look right here, it says not recommended, and I purposely put this here because I want you to see the right way to do it, which is using this, and the wrong way to do it, which is using all of this. So let's go over the wrong way to do it first. And let me just pause right there. If you don't know how to do this, and you don't understand how to use factual disputes, or you don't understand how to use dispute reasons, or you don't understand the domino effect, or you don't understand, the pyramid method, then please first study it and practice and get to understanding it before you use it, because the longer you dispute, the harder it is to remove. All right, jumping right back into here. What I do not recommend, what I don't want to see, and what I am seeing is that you guys are disputing the balance, then the past due, then the high balance, then the open date, then the late payments, and then the status, account status, payment status, comments, and then the other account details. Okay, no, that is not the way that you want to do it. That's not the way. All right, and we're going to jump back over to the right way to do this in just a moment. So let's go jump over to bankruptcy. So for a bankruptcy, it's actually really simple. You're only going to dispute the court name and the filing date. That is the way that I remove bankruptcies, going after the inaccuracies with the court name and filing date. Now, obviously, I could have put 5 other things on here. The fact that they didn't, correct or remove it pursuant to FCRA regulations and so on and so forth. And the same thing for the filing date, and then going to the CFPB and proving that there's violations and all that stuff. But as a professional, as a grown-ass adult, you would already know that you can do those things. So I don't need to put stuff on there that doesn't belong on there, all right? Now, every single bankruptcy that I've ever removed followed this pattern. Now, I should have put not recommended on here. It is not recommended because this is a credit sweep. This is not credit repair. We're not taking the long way around this. We're not looking for temporary deletions. It is not recommended, just as this stuff is not recommended, to go first to the court and then get the proof that they don't verify with the bureaus and blah, 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 blah. You are wasting your time. Let's jump over to judgments and tax liens because we just went over other public records. Okay, so as you can see, this is a little bit similar, all right? Court name, filing date, balance, method of verification request with proof of inaccuracy, and then CFPB complaint, because now we've already disputed all of the factual inaccuracies, right? Every single tax lien, every single judgment that I've ever removed over the past 10 plus years has been by following this, okay? And there's only been like 20% of or less of tax liens or judgments that I haven't been able to remove. This stuff works. I prove it to you all the time. A debt buyer would be like portfolio recovery, Midland, and Calvary. This is also going to go over into charge-offs. So first, we dispute the violations. Late payment on a collection. Hello, it is already late by default. It cannot have a late payment on it. And guess what? It also can't have a past due because guess what? By default, it is past due. All right. So if disputing those two violations does not work, guess what? It goes over to charge-offs. All right. So you're going to understand how that works in just one segundo. All right. So let's go to late payments and let's start with creditor. I do not recommend doing a goodwill letter unless directly notified by the creditor that they'll correct if one is received. Otherwise, dispute directly with the credit bureaus. In the goodwill, you are saying, oh, I'm so sorry. I lost my job. My house blew up. My car blew up. I didn't have money. I didn't feel like paying. And, can you please forgive me? You just legally verified that you were late. Okay, so now what's your next step? Your next step is to reach out to the bureaus and say, I wasn't late on X date. Remove this because you can't legally verify it. And guess what? There goes your letter. There goes your goodwill letter saying, oh, yeah, my name is John and my house blew up and I was late on X date, but I really need your help and please forgive me and please remove this. So when they don't do it, because they're not going to, especially right now with everything that's going on and how tight the restrictions are, now, because you legally verified it, you're not going to be able to get it off using this method, and this is the method that works, okay? So scratch all that, don't use the goodwill, go directly to the bureaus, and you're going to say, I wasn't late on date. And you're going to start with the oldest. Then I wasn't late on date. That's going to be the second oldest. Then I wasn't late on date. Third oldest. Then you can go to method of verification, or you can actually come up here and you can dispute the oldest and newest, or you can go, this is just a comment, lates can be removed because the only way to legally verify it is for the creditor to provide a copy of their own bank statement proving when the payment was received. And there's a typo, but it's supposed to say they won't ever do that, or it won't ever happen. All right. So after you do method of verification, to avoid the account closure, you don't want to push this. However, if the account is closed, you can continue forward with the CFPB complaints and further request they get the account updated because, like I said, legally, they're not going to be able to prove that the account was late. All right. So you need to push kindly. And you need to keep in mind that if you want to keep this on your credit report, you need to word this very, very carefully. All right. You can jump all over. I wasn't 30 days late here. I wasn't 60 days late here. The three bureaus, blah, blah, blah. This is inconsistent and inaccurate, yada, yada, yada. Right. But you can never use the same late payment more than one time. So you can't say June 2015 and then again June 2015. But you can say June 2015 I wasn't late, but then on another round, like 3 rounds later, you can use June 2015 to prove that all 3 bureaus are reporting something totally different, right? Okay, so that's that in a nutshell. Let's move on to deleting the entire account that has late payments. Because if you go back a couple of videos, I was explaining to you how to deal with late payments, right? And if you have more than 3 late payments back to back, you cannot correct it. You have to remove it. And in that video, I explain not only why, but how, okay? So that's why you're seeing on here, late payments, delete, see charge off. So now let's travel over to charge offs and you're going to see all these different things that connect, right? We have the late payments, delete the whole account, goes to charge off. We have the debt buyer, step 3 goes to charge off. And we also have the collection third party after 5 rounds or however many this is, 1, 2, 3, 4. On the 5th round, if it doesn't work, then you go over to charge-offs, right? So we're going to save that for the last step, and we're going to go and check out student loans. All right, so this is for updating student loans. And I have a mini course on how to deal with student loans. Updating student loans. So cannot report, and yes, I see another typo there, 90-day late without prior late payments, 30, 60, 90. That is just kind of how it goes, 30, 60, 90. There can't be a 90-day late payment unless there's a 60. There can't be a 60 unless there's a 30, okay? Like, hello, very straightforward, all right? So a reason for this is I wasn't late on date, remove all inaccurate and unverified late payments if using that 90-day late thing doesn't really work, right? Now, you can also, if this is Navient, and even if it is not Navient, you can still use this just as an example of one of them not applying payments correctly. But if you go back a couple of years, you're going to find a lawsuit against Navient for failure to properly apply payments for millions and millions and millions of consumers. All right. So yes, this actually happens. And you are not the only one. There's millions of other people that this actually happened to legitimately. All right. So you can go after the late payments, or you can use things like lawsuits. And this is one of the reasons why you need to research and understand how this stuff works and what goes on in the financial industry and use it to your advantage. All right. So did we go over everything except for charge-offs? So as you can see with charge-offs, we have creditor and we have bureau. So let's start with creditor, okay? And you're only going to want to do this if, meaning dispute directly with the creditor, only if it's outside the statute of limitations for them suing you, and only if an actual inaccuracy or violation happened that can be proven. And I should have put proven in caps, okay? You can send a, did you receive my request letter, with a copy of letter 1 after you send out letter 1. And after that, you can do a CFPB complaint because there's only so much you can do directly with the creditor, right? And you can also demand for correction of the account or deletion of the account and send a copy of the CFPB complaint as another round to the creditor, okay? So if your question is, well, what do I send out on round 1? Then you really, really, really want to brush up on how to dispute, because this is something really, really basic. A direct to creditor dispute is using a section 623 original creditor letter. That is the only type of letter that you should be sending to the creditor. And it only occurs after number 1, you have already disputed with the bureaus because you don't want to give up your rights under section 623, or number 2, and number 2, it's only outside the statute of limitations, and that there's an actual inaccuracy or a violation that can be proven, okay? So I wrote it this way without solid lines because it all depends on the inaccuracies and violations that you find on your account, okay? So that's why things can change, because you're not always going to start at point 1. The information that is reported on your credit report. So this is not always going to be the same. I don't always start with date last active. Sometimes I start with date of first delinquency. Sometimes I start with the high balance. Sometimes I go, straight over to past due. Sometimes I go after the fact that they didn't report the account was, transferred or sold. Sometimes I start with double jeopardy. Like, it just all depends on your credit report. So that's the super, super, super important part of understanding what your accounts should and should not look like. Because once you understand what they should and should not look like, you will have absolutely no problem getting your deletions, because then you'll be able to craft your actual dispute reasons, right? So anyways, let's just assume that our inaccuracies gave us the information that we'd be able to start with this flow. So we have date last active, date last paid, notice of dispute, and that means the missing notice of dispute, which is a violation of under section 623. And then first date of delinquency. And then we scoot off over to the left. We can also go to date last reported, which means that when they update the account to be verified, they're supposed to also update the date last reported or the date last updated, right? Or whatever. If that date is not updated to when they quote unquote verified the account, that means that no investigation likely occurred. Okay. And we already know, just between me and you and like millions of other consumers, we know that there's no actual investigation. All right. So now this comes back into the flow activity after the close date, right? Now, under first date of delinquency, we also can dispute the late payment history. We can dispute the inconsistency between the bureaus. We can proof that X payments were made on time. We can prove that just one of those late payments were actually totally and completely inaccurate, then the whole account can be removed. Then we can go activity after the close date. We can also, and these have stars next to them because it obviously all depends on the information on your credit report. So while the other ones can virtually always be applied, these are only if it actually applies. Okay. So high balance is lower than the balance. And that's a violation because high balance means the highest balance that the account has ever had. So if the balance is 1,000, but the high balance is only 800, then that's not correct because hello, there's like a $200 difference, right? So you have to always make sure that the high balance is either the same or more than the actual balance. All right, failure to report as transferred or sold. And then double jeopardy for double balance or past due between the original creditor and the collector. And then violation attack. And then let's see where does this connect to? We have another little squiggly line. Okay. And then now let's say that you went through all this whole shebang and the 17 other elements, the account is still there. You don't know what to do. Now we can go over to the not recommended crap, and now we're just shooting blanks in the dark, trying to kill zombies, and we're totally blind. That is what would happen if you went all the way here. And then CFPB complaints are actually going to happen all the way at the end of this, okay? And remember, these can be all valid, ways to remove that account, but it's not recommended because all of these that we just went over are way, way, way more important and have more impact on the actual account and the ability to remove the account than any of these, okay? So I do think that we went over everything now. And again, your credit report is in the middle because all these things can be reported on your credit report. So I do really, really hope that this not cleared things up, but gave you a better understanding of the pyramid method, how to use your elements on the actual account, what flow they would be, what order they'd be in, and how to categorize them. All right. So if you want to learn more, the links are on the screen, the links are in the description, and they're all